Good morning, dear guests, nature-based solution experts, colleagues. Welcome to UNESCO, welcome to International Conference on Nature-Based Solutions for Reducing Disaster Risk here in Paris at headquarters. I also welcome our online attendees, reminding that they're very welcome to attend all our free sessions during the day. Our ways of communication with online attendees will be through Q&A chat, so please ask your questions where they will be transmitted to our speakers. So the day is structured through three very interesting sessions that will cover different aspects of nature-based solutions, from European agenda through project implementation and going back through to global perspectives. So, and without further delay, and for the opening remarks, I would like to invite now the Chief of Disaster Risk Reduction Unit of UNESCO, Mr. Soichiro Yasukawa. The floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and dear panelists. Thank you very much to come all the way to Paris, UNESCO headquarters, and we are delighted to use room 1, which we use for the general conference for UNESCO. And many heads of the states use these conference offices, and we are delighted to be together with you today. So today we are going to have a discussion or share knowledge among the experts on nature-based solutions in the context of Europe. As we see, we have many accumulated knowledge and experience on nature-based solutions. We have many validated solutions or solutions for the nature-based solutions for different hazards such as landslide, flood, or salt intrusion, or coastal erosion, etc. So we would like to discuss from different perspectives how we can scale up nature-based solutions in the European context and beyond European context. So we are going to look at from different angles, like a technical point of view or policy point of view, or like a communication with different stakeholders' point of view. I think we might find more perspectives during the panel discussions. Yes, so we are going to have a series of discussions in the morning on this nature-based solutions in the European context. And then in the afternoon, we are going to invite member states, delegations in Paris to UNESCO to discuss with the policymakers or diplomats how we can scale up nature-based solutions in European context and beyond. So I would like to thank you very much for the panelists coming here to Paris for these sessions. And also I would like to thank my team, Irina and also Zara, who have been working on the big project on nature-based solutions, which is called Operandum. And thank you very much for the European Commissions to be here as well. I also want to thank my team, Leah and Mohammed and Faduma and Pomerin and Kadiatu, who have been helping us for the logistics as well as logistics. And I also would like to thank building facility team, because this room there was a small problems, but they managed to fix it by today, and I would like to thank for this. Before handing over to the panel, I would like to talk a little bit about what we do in UNESCO DRR. So UNESCO is a UN organization that has a mandate on natural and social science, education, culture, communication, information. Utilizing this wide mandate, UNESCO has a following approach on disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation. First one is a multidisciplinary. As I mentioned, we have different sectors. We work with educational science or cultural science. We try to collaborate with different disciplinaries. We also work on the multi-hazard. We have a dedicated team for flood and drought, or tsunami, or earthquake and volcano. So we try to look at the multi-hazard approach, especially on the early warning system. We also work with a multi-stakeholder. UNESCO's primary customer is member states or policymakers, but we make sure to work with academics like you, and as well as the civil societies. UNESCO's priority is gender and youth. UNESCO has 8 different thematic areas to support the countries for disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptations. So among the 8 thematic area, one of them is a nature-based solution, and we have been delighted to work on the huge project, which is called Operandum, funded by European Commissions for the last 4.5 years, and we have accumulated a lot of experience from different perspectives, and yes, we would like to continue, UNESCO would like to continue to support the countries or the different stakeholders to scale up nature-based solutions. We just brought a few DRR brochures, which was published recently, so please try to take a look at it for the other different thematics. But today we are going to focus on the nature-based solutions. Now I would like to pass it to the panel and also the moderator, Silvana from the Bologna University. So thank you very much.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Sorry, we will be sitting, and thank you for the introduction. So I'm Silvana Di Sabatino. I'm professor of atmospheric physics at the University of Bologna, and I'm the coordinator of one of the projects here today, that is Operandum. So I will moderate this wonderful session. We have the honor of having very good panelists that I will introduce each by each. And the format will be that after their presentation, we have the opportunity to ask urgent questions or interesting questions, and we will try to take the advantage of the time here to advance some of the topics that we have in the agenda today. And as Sekiro reminded us, the important part now and the challenge is how we can upscale NbS and how we can use all the science evidence and working with the Commission and all those that can facilitate this uptake. This is very important. So it's for us as a project an important moment to have you, because we think that working together is the mean to make the difference and make this uptake more efficient. So thank you, and I will start with the first speaker, that is Dr. Paola Lepori, that is a project officer working on research and innovation for a clean and healthy planet for the EU institution, DG RTD, and her background is in international relations and Middle Eastern studies. So thank you. The title of her talk is Nature-Based Solutions, a European Commission Perspective. So thank you, Paola. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to start the presentation, but I can't really.
They see you there.
But I can see the presentation. Oh, there you go. Yes, grazie Silvana. I'm actually a policy officer in DG Research and Innovation. My colleague, my colleague Nicola is the project officer. I'm really happy to be here today. I'm not an expert in nature-based solutions, as you might have gathered from my background, but I'm really passionate about nature-based solutions. And today I'm going to try and speak about a couple of things. How the momentum for nature-based solution is growing internationally, how NbS relate to EU policies, And then I'm going to zoom in on research and innovation in particular. So I think I'm preaching to the choir here when I say that nature-based solutions are growing and they have the potential to tackle today's major challenges. And this is being increasingly recognized not only within the scientific community, but also by policymakers and policy implementers. And on the international stage, NbS are growing as well. So we had the multilaterally agreed definition of nature-based solutions last February at the United Nations Environmental Assembly. And then we see NbS being mentioned during international negotiations. So we had the resolution at Ramsar COP15, and then we had a mention in the final text of COP27, the climate COP. During the climate COP, we also had Egypt, Germany, and IUCN launch the ENACT initiative. And then we had the Biden-Harris administration launching the US roadmap for NbS. And if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow Natura will launch the global roadmap for urban nature-based solutions. So this is very positive. We know that some countries are still more comfortable with the wording ecosystem-based approaches rather than nature-based solutions. But the reality on the ground is that nature-based solutions are being studied, they're being produced, and they're being deployed. And at EU level, nature-based solutions are really embedded in a number of key policies within the framework of the European Green Deal. So you find nature-based solutions in the EU biodiversity strategy, in the EU climate adaptation strategy, and also I forgot to change slide, sorry. And also in the proposed EU nature restoration law. Now, if you read the small print on my slide, you can see the nature-based solutions actually contribute to a number of other policies. But there is still the teeny tiny little issue of access to finance. The second edition of the UN State of Finance for Nature was published at the beginning of December, and it states that if we want to reach our goals in terms of biodiversity, adaptation, and also land degradation, we need to double our investment in nature-based solutions by 2025. And 2025 is tomorrow, so personally I find this very scary to read. And the other important thing that the report states is that only 17% of this investment comes from private sources. Now, at EU level, we have the EU Sustainable Finance Taxonomy and other similar initiatives that are being developed to make sure that we guide funds towards sustainable economic activities that are geared towards the policy objectives that we set. And on our side, we're also working with the European Investment Bank on a report that looks precisely at how we can create the right market conditions in Europe for nature-based solutions. But all in all, I think we can say that the European Commission is pretty fond of nature-based solutions. And when it comes to research and innovation, you can see on my slide the figures. They're very good, I would say. We have 46 projects funded under Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe for a total of over 440 million euros in grants. And despite this, though, we still have many knowledge gaps. The market conditions we mentioned before, we need to understand better the cost benefits and trade-offs of nature-based solutions. We need to figure out how to shape a policy framework that is really conducive to nature-based solutions at all levels. We need to understand how to generate social buy-in that leads not only to acceptability, but also to real participation in the creation, implementation, and long-term management of nature-based solutions. And we need solutions that are adaptive and localized, but at the same time, we need solutions that might be replicable. So it's clear that we still have a lot of work to do, and we're doing our best. We just presented this month the new work program for Horizon Europe, and you will find under Cluster 6, but also under the work program of the missions, especially mission adaptation and mission cities, all the topics related to nature-based solutions. So how do we transform policy objectives into research opportunities? Well, we work very closely with our colleagues in other European Commission departments, and our obvious partners in crimes are the colleagues in DG Environment. But we also work with DG Agri, DG Clima, International Relations, DG. We really try and work together. On the one hand, we need to try and make sure that our policies are really based on sound scientific knowledge. And on the other hand, on the side of research and innovation, we need to make sure that our research, our projects are really geared towards achieving the objectives set out in these policies that I mentioned before. And it's particularly obvious in the case of the biodiversity strategy and the adaptation strategy. But if you actually read the topic texts, you will see that we always try and explain a broader policy context, and it's really apparent that nature-based solutions can touch on a number of several of things. Now, the process of writing the work program and creating research opportunities is quite complex, but indeed what we try and do is identify knowledge gaps on the one hand and make sure we are addressing policy needs. And there are extensive consultations involved, not only within the Commission, but also with member states and stakeholders and citizens. And I believe there is a consultation open right now on the next strategic plan. Now, the other face of this coin is feedback to policy, which is for us a very important part of our relationship with the projects. And the way the mechanism works, the formal mechanism works in practice is that the projects, the research community, they feedback their results to the executive agency. The executive agency is mandated with executing the work program, so they follow the projects directly. And then in turn, the executive agencies, they feedback these results to the policy DGs. Again, it's not only DG Research and Innovation, to which I belong, but also the other policy DGs. Then there is a second element to feedback to policy, and it's the EU biodiversity governance that we're working on right now. Again, it's a pretty complex landscape, and we're desperately trying to put it into a visual way to make it clear. And it encompasses a series of bodies that are being set up or revived right now. So there is the EU biodiversity platform, which is where policy questions are raised. Then we have the Knowledge Center for Biodiversity, which is where policy questions are supposed to be answered. Now, this body is managed by the JRC, and sometimes they have the answers readily available, sometimes they don't. So in that case, they activate the Science Service, which is actually another EU-funded project, which is called BioAgora and was just launched. And the role of BioAgora is really to link up to the research community, the EU-funded projects, other organizations, and find the person, the people that can answer the policy questions. This works also the other way around, so bottom up, this system can alert of emerging knowledge gaps and policy questions. And then last point, probably my favorite, because it allows me to go and actually speak with the research community, is really informal avenues, listening to the research communities, meeting everyone in person, attending these sort of conferences. So once again, I'm really glad to be here, and I look forward to speaking with you all during these 2 days. And that would be all for me. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Paola. Do we have questions from the audience? Shall we start breaking the ice? Otherwise, I will start with a question. It is very interesting for us to see this relationship between policy programs and the research community. How this can be facilitated. So usually when we have the project running and they are innovation, research, innovation actions and produce result, usually there is this mismatch between the offices that actually put into the seed for new policy, how this process can be made more efficient, or what is the intention of your office to make this connection with the real research in order to facilitate this interaction.
Thank you very much. One obvious thing that I can say is that we really need to keep the communication channels open. So the relation with the project officers is really important. And we have in the executive agency some really excellent colleagues, and the dialogue between the project officers and the policy officers in the DG is very, very important. Now, one challenge that we have in the remit of research and innovation is that from DG Research and Innovation, we constantly speak with the project officer and the executive agency, but we need other colleagues in other departments of the European Commission to also join the conversation, because they are the ones that actually develop the policies that I mentioned before. And we know that we need to do this better. And we are, I believe, doing this better over the years. So just one simple example. We had an event a couple of weeks ago with the 4 nature restoration projects funded under the European Green Deal call, which was the last and the biggest call under Horizon 2020. We invited them in Brussels, and we invited them to speak with colleagues from DG Agriculture, DG Regio, DG Environment, DG Mare, a series of other colleagues that won't normally have regular contacts with these projects. Because for us, it's very clear that everything we do needs to be upheld by scientific evidence, and that the information that we get from research are fundamental. There is no doubt about it. And then I mentioned the EU biodiversity governance. That's a system that we're still putting in place. But once it's up and running, it's going to be a great tool, because the biodiversity platform that I mentioned is not only for internal Commission services. It's also for member states and other organizations to ask the policy questions that are relevant for them. And we are going to put in place this system to answer this question as quickly as we can with the best scientific evidence that we have in Europe. And I hope this answers.
That's no, that's it. This is very good, and as always in this dialogue, there are mutual responsibility. So are also projects that need to be active in maintaining this dialogue always present, and this is
On a personal level, I was reflecting on this. I know that projects are always very eager to speak with the European Commission, but there is also much more that can be done if there is the will and the means. And that is going also to local authorities, national authorities, because it's not just one level that is going to make everything work. It really needs to be at all levels. So if projects were able to also do this work with other level of governance, that would be, yes. Indeed.
Very important. Yeah, thank you. Some question then, are you ready, or shall we proceed? Yeah, maybe we do like this. So we proceed with the other speaker, and after that, maybe we could reflect together on with the question that maybe is common to all the speakers. So thank you, and next speaker is Claire Warmer. Warrnambool, and is a manager of the communication and partnership at the International Union for Conservation of Nature. I have something on the bio, and is specializing in knowledge management and communication strategies, including outreach and marketing, video production, publication, social media. She works at the interface of science and policy, and from grassroots to international fora. Claire is a trained participatory video facilitator and has filmed and produced numerous documentaries on environmental issues. Her talk today is nature-based solutions to protect people, optimize infrastructure, and safeguard a stable and biodiverse future. So thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Silvana. It's nice to finally meet you in person. So my name is Claire Warrnambool. I'm very pleased to be here. I hope my audio is sounding fine. It's especially an honor to be here in a diverse, gender-balanced panel. I appreciate that very much. I was also wondering if we could potentially have a little bit of water for the speakers here. I may have had too much coffee this morning. I am thirsty. So I will just, this reminded me I need to update my LinkedIn bio because this is what Silvana was reading. But I work for IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature. I specifically work for the Global Water Program in communications and partnership management. However, nature-based solutions, NbS acronym, has been very much part of my work for the last 10 years, especially in the last 4 years, since I was also joining 2 EU projects, one of which Silvana is also a part, which is the Reconnect EU Horizon 2020 project, which also works with Physicos and Operandum. And the other one is Grow Green. Grow Green is an EU project that works on implementing nature-based solutions in cities across Europe, but also across the world, such as in China. I will give a little disclaimer here. I was told yesterday to come and join this panel. And given a PowerPoint that is quite generic on NbS, and since I heard the question on how are we actually going to scale up all this NbS work that has been going on, I wish to actually address it more directly and specifically rather than giving a generic PowerPoint. So I will speak a little bit of my opinion and my ideas on this, which is very much based on we need to learn from everything that has been put in practice and basically toot our own horns a lot more. I'm saying this because for one of our projects, the EU project Grow Green, I traveled to Wuhan in China, not just, well, before the pandemic, and they have implemented quite impressive nature-based solutions in terms of attenuating floods. It suffers from very regular flooding. It's at the confluence of the Han River. And the way that this city has managed to apply nature to absorb the effects of climate change in terms of flooding and droughts has been remarkable. And as we take over these lessons to European cities, and European cities share amongst each other, the Grow Green project, for example, works across Manchester, Brest, Modena, various European cities. And it's really in not just talking about scaling up, but talking about what worked and adapting it to the local context. I am myself actually a politician as well. I sit in the communal council of the city where I live outside of Geneva. And I just want to pick up on the point that was made here. It is very much also local buy-in, uptake from municipalities. And I see that in my political role, where we go look for examples and see from other cities or other regions, how can we also implement this in our local city? And as my background, which Silvana did mention, is communications, I very much feel that nature-based solutions need still much more communications attention and marketing, and really explaining what we mean by that, because to the outside world, it's still a concept that perhaps hasn't caught on. And talking about success stories, not just success stories, but also what are the financial benefits? How is a nature-based solution something that is a good business case? Is something that, from international organizations' point of view, is something that we need to communicate on much more, because there are wonderful business cases out there on adopting and implementing nature-based solutions. I might quickly take you through the slides that IUCN prepared. However, I would like to ask Silvana, how much time does each speaker have? Okay. So here, just so I will keep it short. Here, IUCN has been part of the, let's call it, the journey of nature-based solutions since a very long time, with the official adoption at the IUCN Congress in Marseille in 2016. And I can draw your attention to some very, very in-depth publications, also on case studies on NbS that are available on our IUCN library knowledge platform. We basically have tried to sort of differentiate what is the difference between nature-based solutions, nature-derived solutions, and nature-inspired solutions, so sort of more looking at biomimicry, etc. These are three different concepts. Basically, our definition is that these nature-based solutions are actions to protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural or modified ecosystems that address societal changes. For example, climate change, food and water security, and natural disasters, effectively and adaptively, simultaneously providing human well-being and biodiversity benefits. As I mentioned, this was adopted by IUCN members at our last Conservation Congress in Marseille. This is a little bit more about what these societal challenges are, what we can do about it, looking at those three pillars: nature, people, and economy. As I find it very interesting what Paolo was mentioning as well on the finance publication you highlighted. And this is also wonderful that we are learning from each other what's out there and how can we promote each other's knowledge products. Basically, the complementary approach with gray infrastructure versus natural infrastructure. Obviously, if we protect a forest upstream from a dam, that is going to make this dam, this engineered infrastructure, work more effectively, because we avoid sedimentation and other such examples. So working in synchrony with existing engineered infrastructure, implementing nature-based solutions upstream is always a good economic investment as well, because you basically are optimizing your benefits and maximizing outputs. Here we have a little bit of history on the importance of ecosystems leading to nature-based solutions. Basically, rethinking with nature, looking at investment versus greenwashing, rethinking public financing, and especially enabling blended financing, measuring of impacts and return, and leveraging development opportunities. I wish I had more time to talk about all these, perhaps in the afternoon session, where I can share a few more concrete examples on some of our EU projects. Yeah. I just wish to say a little bit about the IUCN Global Standard on NbS, which we also provide training on NbS, which can be done through the IUCN, and there's various courses now available through our Nature-Based Solutions program, and I welcome anyone to come talk to me about it later if of interest. And someone had fun here with an infographic. These are some early lessons from application of the IUCN Global Standard. I cannot see it very well on the screen, but I'm sure all these PowerPoints will be available for you to consult afterwards. So I'm not going to bother taking you through it. I find the conversations here much more interesting. Perhaps you do too. So please check out these contacts or these hashtags or these handles. And I thank you so much for the water and your attention. Thank you, Silvana.
You may have a question.
Thank you, Claire, very much. Do we have a question from the audience? Warming up a little bit, please. I will pass you the microphone. That's maybe you can come out. Yeah. Okay.
I don't want to come up. Thank you very much. I am representing an EU project dealing with marine systems, Future Mares, and also I'm in the Netherlands. And on the North Sea, of course, we're developing a lot of wind farms. And you mentioned greenwashing, and it's an ongoing debate that scientists like me are having at our institute about how to engage. I'm just curious about what maybe this is a loaded question, I shouldn't ask it, but given the possibilities for clean energy from wind farms, do you have a stance on greenwashing and wind farms coming from companies that are petroleum producers?
Difficult.
Do I have a stance on it? I just want to, I'm not going to say yes or no, and thank you very much for your question. Your question reminds me of this, the Reconnect project that I work on, which is basically working on implementing nature-based solutions in river basins and aquatic areas to reduce meteorological risk. We work in the Netherlands quite a bit, actually, and we work on this Room for the River initiative by scientists there. And what I find really interesting is actually the investments that have been made. There's a lot of interesting information about how land was bought back from farmers, for example, the investment of paying them to give the land back, and then actually afterwards with flooding, how much of the impact, the cost of the impact was reduced, and this balanced out vis-a-vis the initial investment of purchasing agricultural land. For me, that is like, we need these kind of evidence bases to counteract your kind of questions, which I thank you for. And I look forward perhaps discussing this more during the break or so.
I'll bring it up in my talk too.
Okay, wonderful, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Another question? We have 1 minute before next speaker. Well, I say something very brief and a comment. I think the role of IUCN has been really great in the last years. From what I have seen, and you also mentioned, the growth of the world natural-based solution has increased a lot with the spreading of new journals, initiative. Now natural-based solutions is a concept that it is used even by common people. I say that are not specialists. So in all this spreading, how would you see the role played by IUCN in future years, now that the concept is becoming so vast. How would you target your role in the future years?
Thank you, Silvana. You're hitting the nail on the head or the head on the nail. I never get it right. But this is something we're actually currently discussing, and that's going to be very much part of the strategic vision for IUCN. And I will gladly put you in touch with the person who is working on this specifically. But it is indeed a very important question, because if we're talking these days a lot about legacy of our NbS projects, then that is key, part and parcel of what this vision is going to be. So I think there's going to be a lot of interesting work around that. So stay tuned.
Yeah, it's rather important, because the definition then now we all use refer to yours, and but through these years it has been connotated by, you know, lots of content and there is lots behind the word actions to protect nature, and so then it's becoming more and more robust in the interaction with the DRR and DG Clima and et cetera. So it will be important that dialogue that Paola mentioned is also done at the level of the large institutions, in order to make order somehow on the proliferation of activities and lots of projects that we have in place. Thank you. So let's go to the next speaker, and is Sebastian, I think, Penzini, Deputy Chief, United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction. And the bio, it tells us that he holds a master's degree in international relations and affairs from Sciences Po X. And the talk is accelerating the DRR in Europe and Central Asia. So thank you. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Silvana. Good morning. And first of all, thank you to UNESCO colleagues for hosting us, for the invitation to the Operandum project. I think I'm very pleased to be in Paris, and it's always very nice to talk about disaster risk reduction in France. And also congratulations to France for yesterday evening, of course. So maybe what I will try to do is to very briefly address the broader perspective of disaster risk reduction, for which nature-based solutions are a critical opportunity and an element to continue to scale up and to further accelerate. And for that, I'm going, of course, to focus on the global agreement for disaster risk reduction, which has been endorsed by the UN member states back in 2015, and which is the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction. So first of all, I cannot resist being in France to share with you the meaningful words of a great French scientist, Valérie Masson-Delmotte, who is also an IPCC expert, and who says something which I would translate into English as we are quietly walking behind a very rapidly evolving climate. And I think it is a quite good description, unfortunately, of what we are all saying about climate action, and to some extent also about disaster risk reduction efforts. What Valérie Masson-Delmotte says is also confirmed by figures. If I just share with you the following, I would say, charts, we can see that disasters increase in terms of frequency, in terms of intensity, and we have here a very short overview of what it is about, and we can see the increase in terms of figures, the increase in terms of number of events, and we have also here on the right side the share of Europe, which is I would say already outstanding. And if we think about what we have faced in this region in the very recent years, talking about drought, talking about the wildfires in many countries, talking about floods in Germany, I think that there is no more, in a way, opportunity to say that climate change does not have an impact on disasters. And in this context, we can say that we are not yet reducing risk sufficiently. So maybe one thing we can start with is to talk about what is being undertaken at this moment globally and also in Europe and Central Asia, a region which I work for, I would say, and which is actually the midterm review of the Sendai framework. The Sendai framework has been adopted in 2015, as I said, and it will run until 2030. And so we have the chance this year to have member states taking a very important exercise in actually reviewing their progresses, but also the gaps and the challenges in implementing this framework and in accelerating efforts for reducing risks and for reducing the impacts of disasters. And I'm pleased to share with you already, I would say, before the release of the report, before the high-level event which will take place in New York next year, some initial findings from this midterm review and focusing on Europe. If we are talking about risk knowledge, which is one of the priorities of the Sendai framework, we can say that we have already seen some important progresses, especially in improving and increasing the number of national risk assessment, in building the coherence among the risk assessment methodologies. We have also, thanks to a number of institutions and colleagues like the Joint Research Center of the European Commission, we have better data, we have better systems and tools for better understanding the risks. And we have also, I would say to some extent in different countries, a better availability, production and use of data related to disasters. That's a good point. At the same time, and this is, I would say, a full topic to address, but not this morning, we are not yet into completely the understanding of the systemic nature of risk, and nature-based solutions are also extremely linked to this systemic nature of risk and the need to address it in a very coherent manner. So the consideration of this systemic nature of disaster risk is still extremely, or at least quite limited globally and also in our region. In terms of governance, which is also another main priority of the Sendai framework, we can say that many progresses have been observed since 2015, especially in the development of national strategies for disaster risk reduction, which are a very efficient tool and mechanism for improving the coherence of the action, for putting the stakeholders together, and for having a long-term vision about disaster risk reduction. This is an important positive point, but it goes also with a number of gaps and challenges, especially in actually building coherence between climate action and disaster risk reduction. And it is something we are going to address again, I believe, this afternoon. Nevertheless, we have also some structural gaps in terms of risk governance, and one is definitely in many countries still a fragmentation of the roles and responsibilities for tackling the question of disaster risk reduction, for working together, for associating the different ministries in charge to some extent of disaster risk reduction. I can talk about not only the ministry in charge of civil protection, but also Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Health. We are still, I would say, in the middle maybe of the COVID-19 pandemic. So this coherent approach is still something lacking behind. And I would say, unfortunately, and I think it is a topic we are going to address again and again for these 2 days, one important gap, maybe the main gap as of today, is still about risk financing. We still face a lack of engagement from both public and private actors for seeing disaster risk reduction, for seeing climate change adaptation as an investment and not as a cost. And I would already here echo maybe what Claire said about the need to talk more and better about the business case for nature-based solutions, because now we have the figures. Even the Secretary General of the United Nations, I would say, started to talk about mathematically the interest and the benefit that we can obtain in investing in disaster risk reduction efforts and actions, instead of always thinking about a disaster and the way to recover after it happens. So this is definitely a remaining gap that would have to be addressed in the coming years if we wish to build a resilient Europe, Central Asia, and globally world. For that, what I would like to share with you, I'm sorry the slides are a bit busy, but I think the ideas are quite simple behind it. In Europe, what we have tried to do is also to address one of the gaps I mentioned just before, to put all stakeholders together, talking about member states, talking about local authorities, talking about the private sector, talking about the representatives of the civil society, etc., etc. So to put all stakeholders together for addressing the specificities of the European region and for developing a document which would support the acceleration of the implementation of the Sendai framework. And this document, which was endorsed back in 2021 in Portugal, is the European Roadmap for Disaster Risk Reduction 2021-2030. So this roadmap is really not an additional document, but actually an adaptation of the Sendai framework for really tackling the specificities of Europe and Central Asia and for taking concrete actions about disaster risk reduction. So I will not go into many details of the roadmap, but here we are also talking about the main priorities, which are about risk knowledge, about risk governance, about investment for disaster risk reduction, and about preparedness. So the idea, of course, is to continue to work on the knowledge and the understanding of the emerging and new risk, which is something extremely important, also considering the systemic nature of risk again, and to continue to work on data, which is a key element for everything we are all doing on disaster risk reduction and for building resilience. The second element, which was also already addressed by my colleagues, is to work better in coherence, to avoid the silos, to work across sectors. Again, here we are talking about the systemic nature of risk. One event can affect different sectors, and we have to work together for understanding it and taking concrete actions. Also to work on a transboundary basis, because disasters have no borders, as we know, and to work on inclusive governance systems, because we have groups which are most at risk. We can talk about persons living with disabilities. We can talk also about gender. We can talk about migrants and refugees, and we have to have this inclusive approach if we want to be successful in reducing the impacts. Of course, I was saying 1 minute ago that investment are still an important gap. We need to further invest in critical infrastructures. We are talking here about, of course, transport and energy infrastructures, but not only, about health infrastructures, about education infrastructures, and to ensure that all these critical assets are resilient to disasters and to climate change. And for that as well, I think we will have experts in the room. Nature-based solutions are extremely relevant for this aspect. We are also talking more and more and very relevantly about multi-hazard early warning systems. We have a call now from the Secretary General about early warning system for all. So it is also an element to focus on. I'm not going to remind you about what happened just 2 years ago in Europe and how much the floods have been devastating, because also of some gaps in terms of early warning systems. So it is an area of priority. And finally, again, the inclusive approach is a must that we have to address in the coming years for being sure that no one is left behind. So just a few words about how these elements, how these priorities are handled, are addressed in Europe and Central Asia, and with the support of the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction and a large number of partners, among which UNESCO, other UN agencies, but also, of course, the European Commission, the European Union, and many others. One of the things we have tried to do immediately after the endorsement of the roadmap is to turn this roadmap into actions, not to stay with a document, but to have stakeholders discussing it and trying to turn actually its recommendations into proper action. And we already started to talk about extreme temperatures, to talk about drought in urban areas, wildfires, and Greece hosted a dialogue on this aspect back in October this year, and we have already a document with very concrete actions which are going to be taken by the 15 countries which were coming from the Mediterranean basin, which is, as you know, a climate change hotspot, and in which I would say, again, nature-based solution can be definitely a game changer. We also add, of course, addressing a priority I stressed many times, a dialogue on risk financing, which was hosted by Croatia, and again, where different countries managed to discuss together and also to build capacities. And same thing, this process will continue. And maybe one thing I may say today, and using this opportunity, is maybe to offer some of you to think about maybe an action-oriented dialogue on nature-based solutions. We can work with we can work with a member state for hosting it. We can work with other member states for being concretely engaged into it. So it is one proposal I would make here if you wish. I would finally talk about what is being done also very concretely, more or less at the national level, but also at the local level for, again, accelerating the implementation of the Sendai framework. So work is being done, again, on risk knowledge. We are working with other partners, such, again, as the European Commission on indexes for risk knowledge, the Informed Subnational Risk Index for the one we are taking care of. We are talking about disaster loss databases, which are not, of course, the entire recipe for improving everything, but which are extremely important for knowing about the past disasters, for knowing about the impact and being able to develop trends and to develop actions for the future. And we are talking about also new mechanisms for triggering better assessment and better profiles. We are also working again on governance in supporting member states for developing, reviewing, and implementing disaster risk reduction strategies. And here again, one very important element is to work with them and to support them, not only for defining the strategy, but also for allocating to it a predictable budget and for ensuring that what is being put on the paper is then implemented. That's an important element. And one also very important element is what is being done at the local level. I think that there will be many examples in the course of today and tomorrow about that, but there is also from the UN an important initiative, which is the Making Cities Resilient initiative, where a number of partners came together for, first of all, assessing resilience of cities, working with mayor offices and departments, putting people together again, and working on the solutions through the development of local plan for disaster risk reduction. And again, it's not a proposal, but I think that nature-based solution that we can see already in many different cities, we will see that also this afternoon, are an extremely core part of the elements to be put in these local plans for disaster risk reduction. I would like very briefly to talk about the partnerships as well. It's extremely important to be inclusive here and to improve the science policy interface. We are trying our best to work on this aspect. We have established and we are coordinating a scientific and technical advisory group on disaster risk reduction. If you wish to know more about it, you can check it on our website, and we are always very happy to receive contributions from scientists and from different stakeholders in this advisory group. We are also working, and this is a very important element I would like to stress, with the sub-regional entities working on disaster risk reduction. They are really engines for accelerating action. In Central Asia, there is the Center for Emergency Situation and Disaster Risk Reduction. In Southeast Europe, we have DPPI SE. I don't know if you are familiar with these entities, but please be aware that they are doing a great job for working with member states and also at local level. And we have also CBSS in the Baltic Sea states. There are, of course, many actions undertaken by the different UN agencies trying to work as one UN for supporting the different entities, national, local, and the stakeholders about it. And last point, which is for us, again, a must, is to be as inclusive as possible in consulting and working together with the groups at risk, and I already listed a part of it. So I will stop here. There are many things we can still discuss. If you would like to dive a bit more into the details, UNDRR is publishing regularly very technical guidance about elements for disaster risk reduction. And as you can see, one of the latest ones is about nature-based solutions. So I think it is a kind of a gold mine for knowing more and better about it, and for, again, turning words into action. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. There is only time for a very brief question because we are running now out of time.
Sorry for that.
There is some question. Otherwise, I make a comment. So thank you for pointing out the role, pointing out the necessity of bridging the community of NbS with DRR. When we started this project in 2017-18, that linkages was not in place, and now the dialogue has started. So we really follow up, and I would invite the audience and the many partners that are present to approach you and to talk on how this can be facilitated. So very thank you for your talk, and we will come back with more specific questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, really thank you. So next speaker today, we have other two speakers, so we will try to maintain the time. Is Milo Fiasconaro. I don't know if the pronunciation is correct. It's being Italian, we never know where the accent is. Executive Director of Acqua Pubblica Europea. And the bio tell us that Milo has an extensive professional and academic experience in EU policies, especially in the field of research and enterprise policies. He holds a master by research degree in economic geography by Durham University in the UK, and a degree in EU policy from Florence University in Italy. So thank you, the floor is yours.
Well, thanks to you. Thanks a lot to UNESCO and to the Operandum project for this invitation. For the opportunity, to share with you a bit of what we are doing on nature-based solution, but above all to learn from the Operandum project and from other experts how together to scale up indeed nature-based solution. A few words to start with about the organization I represent. Acqua Pubblica Europea is a network of publicly owned water and sanitation utilities at European level, 100% publicly owned. The secretariat of the association is based in Brussels, but the association brings together more than 60 members from different European countries that overall provide water and sanitation services to around 80 million citizens, including operators from big cities like Paris, Brussels, Warsaw, but also regional operators like Scottish Water or Acquedotto Pugliese in Italy, and also operators from more rural areas. We have essentially two objectives. One is to contribute to European and international policy making on water by bringing the ideas, the experience, and the values of the public model of water management. And then the other objective is providing our members a platform where they can share experiences, good practices to address common challenges on water-related issues. And nature-based solutions are certainly a priority that we address both in our interaction with stakeholders, international institutions, and also internally as a way of sharing best practices. In this slide, you will find some of our, let's say, external initiatives, recent external initiative on nature-based solutions. Last year in November, we organized an international conference on that with the IPCC, with the European Commission, European Investment Bank, and many other experts to discuss together indeed how to scale up nature-based solutions. We were invited by the European Commission to contribute to a workshop last year in the framework of the revision of the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive, where we tried to explain and to promote a nature-based solution indeed as a way also to address in particular the problem of stormwater overflow in urban areas. And we are also part of a project, a research project funded by Horizon program. That maybe one of the four that you were mentioning before that you met, Merlin project, quite huge project with more than 40 partners that has the ambitious objective to mainstream nature-based solution for freshwater management at river basin level. And then, as I was saying, we also promote the sharing of best practices among members of nature-based solution. In this slide, you will see some examples of initiative projects carried out by our members in different cities. It's worth saying that most of these projects are self-financed by the operators themselves. I must say, we must acknowledge that for the time being, most of these projects are a bit small scale. They are mostly implemented at urban area. But we also see an increasing number of projects, especially in France, and especially thanks to a law which is very important, the GMAP law, maybe we'll talk a bit later. We also see a growing number of projects addressing or trying to implement a nature-based solution at the river basin scale to address pollution problem, hydromorphology issues, but also and especially to manage risk related to drought and floods. Why there is this? Why nature-based solutions are climbing for us our agenda? Well, at least for three reasons, quite easy. There is a growing recognition that nature-based solutions are cost-effective compared to traditional gray solutions, more cost-effective and more resilient, because if I built a water retention tank to deal with the summer water overflow, well, the capacity of this tank cannot be adapted in the future according to evolving rainfall patterns or according to evolution in society, like population growth or the population. So it's very rigid, the gray solution, whereas nature-based solutions have the capacity to adapt much better to the evolution of things around us. And finally, less gray means also, of course, less CO2 emission, because as we know, concrete is one of the major sources of emissions. However, despite these benefits and potentialities, we have the impression that there is still a low uptake on nature-based solutions. Why? Well, for our perspective, for the perspective of water utilities, we can mention at least three issues. The first concern water operators themselves. There is maybe a need for water utilities to update a bit, let's say, their approach. Traditionally, water operators are or used to be engineering companies. Civil engineers represented the backbone of the water utilities, and we can assume that at least in the past, nature-based solutions were not the core subject of engineering faculty. So there is a bit the need to upgrade the knowledge in water utilities through recruiting maybe also new and younger workforce, new skills, and also through the work of associations like ours that try to promote nature-based solutions. Second problem, as pointed out by many people, is a bit still a lack of methodology or metrics to assess correctly the benefit of nature-based solution compared to traditional gray solutions. There is certainly a growing number of research on that, including by important institutions like the European Commission. The European Commission last year in 2021 published, together with the Joint Research Center, a very comprehensive handbook providing methodology for impact assessment of natural-based solutions, or a very huge volume like this. But despite this important work, in the introductory note to this work, and I quote here, they say it's very difficult to propose general design principles for nature-based solution, and the economic, social, and ecological benefits must be evaluated in the specific context. So this context specificity on nature-based solution maybe represents still a limit for a broader, larger uptake. Finally, third problem, at least, and this is the major one, at least from our perspective, is governance. The issue is that water utilities, water operators, in most cases, cannot carry out nature-based solutions alone. They need the coordination with many other parts of public administration, with other stakeholders. This is true for the urban nature-based solution, but even more complicated for nature-based solution at river scale level, where you have to coordinate also, you have an issue of land use, coordination with farmers and so on, which is complicated. And in many cases, water operators have not the power, they have not the mandate to carry out certain kind of initiative outside their perimeter. And this is an issue that has also a relation with finance then, because some of the costs related to nature-based solution are not always recognized as costs that operators can recover through the tariff, and this is also an issue. To conclude, what is the way forward for us? Well, certainly we need an evolution of the regulatory framework that pushes even more than now towards integrated management of water resources. We can certainly say that we see a positive evolution of legislation at the European level. The new Drinking Water Directive that was approved last year contains new provision for a more upstream approach for the protection and management of water resources. The proposal of the European Commission for the revision of the Urban Wastewater Treatment Directive that is currently under negotiation contains new provision for more integrated urban planning, especially for rainwater, although we say that the Commission could have been a bit more braver in proposing nature-based solution, but we'll try to correct that in the Parliament, European Parliament soon. So there is a positive evolution. We have good law that are coming up, and again, in particular, the GEMAPI law in France, but certainly we need to accelerate the rhythm. There is, as I said, the responsibility for water utilities to upgrade, let's say, a bit their software, but we also need a broader change of mindset in other parts of public administration on how to deal with that. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Milo, and also for keeping the time. It's very interesting. I think that we are in a moment where there is a necessity of putting together all our energy. So the work that you're doing, obviously on NbS, can be in a way, can contribute, or we can contribute to some of the work that you do, and we probably need to facilitate this process. As Paola was as a starter panelist was mentioning, the dialogue is very important, and probably not all the initiatives are the people are aware. People are not aware of all the initiatives, and it's necessary that we don't duplicate the work, but we will try to integrate as much as possible. What would be the comment about this? How can we facilitate then the integration of the work you do with what we have heard this morning with the several initiatives?
At least for our perspective, is certainly we need that there is a clear responsibility to manage certain issues like risk related to floods and droughts. So far in many countries, we see that nobody knows who really has to do that, and there is a problem. So this is a problem of governance, of policy framework, of clear responsibility. There is then an issue of a bit of having appropriate financing tools. If I can comment on something that previous speakers were saying about evolving the public financing approach together with also thinking to blending instruments. Yes, that's a really promising perspective, but let's be honest, here we are talking about the nature-based solution are there to provide benefits to, coming from nature for all. There is a public good component on nature-based solution that it's difficult to capture through to market mechanisms. And that's why also private financiers are less interested so far to finance this kind of intervention. We need to have this in mind to find innovative way to finance nature-based solutions. And certainly, as I was saying, your work, the work of the European Commission of experts, to have a solid methodology to say, look, we know that natural-based solutions work, but work much better than great for this reason. They help to depollute much more, and they are less expensive. Yes.
We have a question from the audience, from online. Please, Irina, report this question.
Well, thank you. I take an occasion to thank you for this great discussion. I really enjoy it. And I keep an eye on our online audience, and thank you for more than 60 people to be with us now. There are many questions, and I'll pick up one of them. I think it's been there for a while, but I think it was waiting for Milo's presentation. So how is it possible to implement a concept that completely changes planning paradigm in the current economic state? Doesn't it need a new economic approach, nature-based solutions? I mean,
is this
of
recorded?
Course it's open.
I don't know if you can express. I don't know. I mean, we have gaps. We can identify gaps, and maybe we don't have a solution yet to address some of the gaps. I'm thinking, for example, now I'm thinking to this law that I mentioned in France, which is in English would be like a law for the management of aquatic environment and the protection of floods, and give a responsibility to, is pushing in a sense to do a natural-based solution on a river basin scale. It's a matter of responsibility and assigning responsibility to clear entity, but in terms of financing, so municipalities have the possibility to give the mandate to deal with that to water operators that then recover the cost in the water bill, but the cost of natural-based solution are not linked to the volumetric consumption like normally we pay for our water bill, but it's related to land use and land value. And I think that we need to think to innovative way to link up intervention on the nature to restore nature and to benefit from nature that have characteristics that are not traded on the market, and we need to consider that. So a new one, well, a new approach, economic approach, well, we need maybe to complement the current one with new things.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe to some of these very broad questions, we will come back later with the comments from the panelists. I would go for another question if there is a specific with respect to the talk that Milo gave. Otherwise, we will listen to the final speaker, and after that, come back with the questions that have larger breadth. Unless there is a question, otherwise we will move on. So thank you once again. And the last speaker today is Jonathan Baker, that is head of science unit at the UNESCO Regional Bureau for Science and Culture in Europe at UNESCO Venice office. And he also a Juris Doctor in International and Environmental Law from the Tulane University Law School. So thank you, Jonathan, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I want to thank my colleagues, the organizers, for inviting me as well. I'm delighted to be back at Paris and headquarters, and to have seen last night's match in Paris. That was kind of fun. So I'll give you my short presentation. The first part is kind of related to what our regional bureau does, to give you sort of a global understanding. Obviously, you know what UNESCO does at the global level, but and this is another quite busy slide and pretty small and very difficult to read from up here. But anyways, so the mandate of the bureau, we work through. This is the only UNESCO regional bureau that works in the areas of science and culture. So a lot of our activities are kind of related at the intersection of science and culture, as you'll see from some of the projects that I'll speak about in a bit. As we support the member states under our purview, we try to promote cooperation between them in the areas of science and culture, and also, in fact, education. And we also have a person working on ocean literacy. And I see a lot of the projects that we'll speak about today or tomorrow related to the ocean. So we also have that specificity at the office. So yes, and we work through promoting scientific cooperation. In particular, I'm the head of the science part of the office, and through these are the five functions of UNESCO. So laboratory of ideas, catalysts for international cooperation, clearinghouse, capacity builder, and standard setter. And this is the geographical purview of the regional bureau. So there are 14 countries in Southeast Europe and part of the Mediterranean, and we're based in Venice and Italy, and so we do quite a lot of work as well with Italy. But most of our projects aren't based in Italy specifically. Another very busy slide. Sorry for that. But you guys have the big screen here, so you might be able to read it. But not sure about that either. But anyways, so 4 areas of action for the science part of the work that we do at the Regional Bureau, which I head. So working on science, technology, and innovation. Working with UNESCO sites. So we're talking about there are 2 UNESCO sites, biosphere reserves. And global geoparks that are part of, let's say, the science part of UNESCO, and then there's the best known sites of UNESCO, which are World Heritage sites, which are run out of our culture sector, but with whom we do quite a bit of work, since, as I mentioned before, our office has a dual role in science and culture. Our third area, priority area, is working on water resources management, and we have working through the Intergovernmental Hydrological Program, which is based here in Paris, but we work with the IHP committees in all the different countries under our purview to promote water cooperation at the regional level. And the fourth cross-cutting area is working on disaster risk reduction and climate change adaptation, again at the regional level. And as I mentioned, quite a few interdisciplinary activities with our culture colleagues, also with on education, so education for sustainable development, science education, STEM, and working, as I mentioned before, with natural and cultural sites. How do we do this? This is a little bit repetitive from one of my other slides, but capacity building, operational support, working through regional platforms. We have fantastic networks, and so just to ensure that we bring the best out of these networks, we work through different platforms, through the different sites, the different intergovernmental programs that UNESCO has, and through awareness raising and partnership building with the UN, with our sister and brother UN agencies, of course, with our member states, with the private sector to a certain extent, and so that's another key. And here is with whom, as I was just noting, lots of different networks that are really fantastic that we work with. Our national commissions, the only UN organization that has these national commissions in each country, which are a fantastic resource for us and how we interact with all our member states at the national level. So here, now I'll speak a little bit about, and these are even busier slides, some of a couple of sorry about that, EU-funded projects that are managed by our regional bureau. So the first one is Shelter, which is related to disaster risk reduction and cultural sites. And we have a specific, we're working in one of the pilot areas, 5 project open labs in the Sava River Basin, which is in the Sava River Basin, which is, as you know, is very prone to flooding. It's a big project, 23 partners. The idea is to develop a data-driven and community-based knowledge framework, bringing together both the scientific community and the people working in the area of culture. And one more slide on Shelter, and I think everybody will get the slides, so I'm not going to even try to read through any of this. But there's quite a bit of really interesting work that's gone on there, bringing together as these 2 groups, both the science-based groups that were working on flooding, on the civil protection as well, and then of course the cultural experts. And we've developed some with the Sava River Basin, Sava GIS geo portal, looking at how the cultural heritage sites have been affected by disasters, notably floods. The second EU-funded project is another project that's related to to cultural sites as well. But in this, for this project, cultural sites and the development of sustainable energy and sustainable heating in particular. So there's the project looks at developing innovative, sustainable geothermal heating solutions, and we come in because we're implementing some of these innovative heating solutions in cultural sites, notably a cultural site of the World Heritage Site of Ferrara, which is actually relatively close to us in Venice. And as you can see by it's the actual building, Angel's Gate in Ferrara. If you visit, it's at the entrance of Ferrara, and that's a little picture all the way to the left. It was quite a difficult time, of course, to try to do all this work on site once COVID hit. We had a little bit of a halt to operations, but we were able to continue with them, and the project will end at the end of this year. Another activity. So we're working again in Southeast Europe, in Albania, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, and North Macedonia and Serbia, looking again at working with management authorities of UNESCO sites, so both cultural and natural sites, to see how they can include in their management plan a better management of disasters, and looking at also adaptation to climate change. And here we held a training with these managers of these sites in Lake Ohrid a couple of months ago. And we will be developing guidelines based on that training and based on the best practices which has come out of that. Here again, a few boxes of other activities that we've been doing relating to disasters and climate change, and to a certain extent nature-based solutions. And maybe I'll speak just a little bit about the third box over here on which is a partnership we developed with the private sector, with Aberdeen Foundation, which is a finance group based in the UK. And they were interested in promoting both the research and education on the ground in different UNESCO sites. So we've selected 5 UNESCO sites. They're all biosphere reserves, actually. One of them is also a World Heritage Site. One in transboundary in Albania and North Macedonia, another one in Greece and Italy, in Slovenia, and in the UK. And we're looking to promote research within those sites and link that research to education and to the programs that are being developed within the sites. So working with the, with the schools and kids to develop activities related to the research that's been going on these different topics, mostly related to water, but some related to the ocean as well, and to biodiversity. Here's one slide I want to talk about, actually another type of work that UNESCO does at the regional level, which is working with 18 different UN agencies and within the context of the issue-based coalition on environment and climate change. And this is a way that we're able to, that all the different agencies are also able to bring their expertise at the regional level and offer this expertise in environment and climate change to the UN country teams. So it's a modality that was set up to ensure that the wealth of knowledge and information that the UN has at the regional level can be brought to the national level, which is a key priority for the UN system. Some of the work that we did the last year relates to putting together the key messages on climate change, the training on green transition, mainstreaming environment and climate change in UN cooperation frameworks, so the national documents that are prepared by the UN. And then coming back to the local level is my last slide, but just another illustration of how we try to, here in this case, working in Italy, working from source to sea, looking at water resources management from the mountains to from the Dolomites down to the Mediterranean, and bringing together specialists working in different areas and mountains in the ocean as well, to work together and see how to develop common solutions. Yes, I think I'm going to stop at the local level, actually. There I am. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that instead of asking a specific question, I would like to conclude the session with a question that can be answered by all of you. Do we have it from the audience, or let's try? We have Heikki. Yeah, please, FMI. It's an Operandum partner, Finnish Meteorological Institute.
Yes, so my name is Heikki Tuomenvirta from the Finnish Meteorological Institute, and like Silvana already told, we are happy to be a partner of the Operandum project. And FMI also, is a research institute, but we provide support to society. And in this case, I want to mention that we provide, for example, climate services to private and public financial sector. And there we approach my question, which is that how do you see there are these global challenges that the financial sector is interested in working with us, finding the solutions to climate change and loss of biodiversity and so on. And coming from the research project, what do you think is needed from the financial sector, especially reinsurers and insurers, so that NbS would be considered the viable option for implemented in around the world to these questions, so that it would be really first, how would I say, recognized and then established as a viable solution. So what do you would expect from us as a research project? Thank you.
Thanks, Heikki. Who would like to answer first? Okay, please.
I can try to break the ice again. Yeah, no, it will be, no, I don't know if I understood very correctly the question, but trying to put it together with also some thought I have from the different speakers and the question, and also trying to link it with also what we are experiencing in the overall disaster risk reduction action. I think that one extremely important element which would require energy, but also funding in a way to really focus on it and beyond what has been done already, is to really be able to do the cost-benefit analysis of the nature-based solutions, for really being able to tell a story about it and to go to the different actors able to finance actually these solutions, for actually going beyond, sorry for my words, but so far we can say that when we discuss with actors about nature-based solutions, not always, but quite often, we are talking about appealing solutions, about, to some extent, even sexy solutions, because, as we said, for the ones linked to water, it's at a small scale, it goes into very nice neighborhood where they want to do things even better than usual, etc. But what is, I think, critical is to really dedicate even project and studies and analysis for doing the cost-benefit analysis of the overall solution, for selling it in a way to the investors, to the international development partners, and also to the financial sectors. And I would just complete this in saying that, again, in relation with what is being seen for disaster risk reduction, one important element is to increase the communication and the capacity building of the local actors, because they are really at the front line. They are, in the end, the one deciding. And we have seen many times when we give actually these capacities, I'm not even talking about resources, but when we give the capacities, when we actually make the case to the local actors, they find channels for even having funding, and for sometimes bypassing the challenges they have with the normal actors and donors, for finally finding the solution, because they are the one dealing with the population, and they are the ones obliged to some extent to find the final one. And one final element about that is, I think this is also a two-direction channel, because listening from the communities, the local actors, and building on the indigenous knowledge for nature-based solutions is also something which will help for the overall element. Thank you. Sorry for being long.
Thank you, Silvana. Just in addition to this, and to address your question, I just wanted to also mention, in terms of your research work, what is very important today is we have become so used to quick fixes. A quick fix. There's a flood, let's build a dike. There's rising sea levels, let's build a seawall. But with your work, I think with NbS, what is very important is to move from the quick fix to the long-term fix. A long-term fix meaning long-term benefits, optimized benefits, and a diversified portfolio, just as we do with our financial investment. It's a win-win, and I think focusing on that outcome in research project is very important.
Please.
I just wanted to add one element to that, which I think is important, we need to, when we're speaking about you spoke about the financial sector, we need to also educate and work with them to make them understand what all of this means and why it's important to them. So part of that is being able to explain, the benefits of working with nature-based solutions, and then we need to educate throughout the organizations. These financial groups are huge, with tens of thousands of people. They're people that are interested in the future. They're interested in nature. It's true. And so once you start working with, at least in my experience, once you start working with financial groups and you meet some of the people that are working on these issues, and you realize that there's a lot of potential there. So to get that research, to be able to explain it to the financial groups, and then to educate within, the internal education within the groups, I think is something that's really, really, really important.
Please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
if I can add something to this question. I already said in my intervention that, I mean, attracting private finance to world nature-based solution can be challenging for intrinsic reason. I mean, also the difficulty to assign certain values to what has been financed. But there are also opportunities. I mean, and there is a growing appetite of private finance for green financing. So how to respond to this appetite? Well, and to avoid greenwashing? Well, we need good indicators. So we need first a clear responsibility who has to do things, because this also means costs that are then accounted for. And then we need good indicators. Let me say, at the European Union, there was a very important initiative on green financing, which is the taxonomy. We had a really high expectation on that. What I've seen so far, I don't know how to say it in a diplomatic way, is really disappointing, especially from a point of view of nature-based solution. There is nothing so far in the taxonomy promoting nature-based solution.
Yeah, we are here today. I hope that we can advance that. Yeah, yeah. Paula, do you would like to last quote or?
Maybe, yeah. Just not at all. And I'm going to conclude. No, I just wanted to say that going back to what you were saying, actually, Claire, about communication, we need to learn how to speak the language of our audience, because very often we tend to address very different target groups with the same narratives, and this is not going to work. We need to really speak the language of the person we're targeting, and this is particularly relevant in the case of financial organizations and investors. And just to say that I hope this report that I mentioned in my presentation, the European Investment Bank report, which is actually written in cooperation with IUCN, because we work a lot with IUCN, is going to at least lay the groundwork for advancing on this very, very important issue that we're having. And yeah, and the insurance as well, we have a couple of projects working on that, but there is still so much work to do, and at times it's really daunting, I have to say.
But we are progressing. Yeah. Yeah, so thank you very much for the fruitful discussion. I really enjoyed, and also the feedback that I'm having from the audience is that has been really pleasant, and also very important, the messages that we have shared this morning. The hope will be to continue and to uptake what we have been discussing in order to promote the synergies between various associations, different user groups, etc., and advance the topic. So for now, I think with that we have a break. I would like to recall for the attendees online that we will regroup at 11:45, and yeah, we will continue with the dialogue after in the next session. Thank you very much.